Welcome to the Be Insightful in Technology podcast, where I'm your host, Shikirah, aka Shy, and I'm here to help you gain knowledge, wisdom, and understanding to be insightful in technology. So let's get into today's episode. It's a little different. I'm going to do a reflection of the previous weeks. I really do like the energy of being able to tell you guys what's going on, or just being able to talk about the daily or weekly progression throughout my career and being able to share that with you guys. So let's go ahead and talk about it. So last week, it was the last week of August and the first couple of days of September. And this week, I'm currently on vacation, which is simply, I'm just taking off time, some PTO, using it. I've held off taking off long weeks due to the workload and responsibility, the making impact. I've been very overwhelmed with life and work, and they continue to happen at the same time. They do not stop. As work was becoming more demanding, I thought about canceling my time off, but realizing that I needed it more than anything. My birthday is coming up, so I didn't want to endure any stress other than which outfit I was going to wear to the function. I wanted to have no stress dealing with work. So the beginning of last week, I started off very tired. I was celebrating with friends on Sunday and needed to wake up at 4 a.m. on Monday to be at the fitness boot camp I signed up for at 5 a.m. I didn't feel rested at all, so I ended up sleeping in. I said, bump of the gym, I'm getting my sleep. Over the past couple of weeks, I've been working a lot of overtime, and it has affected my sleep schedule along with doing an early riser, no BS, hard hitter fitness boot camp. To talk about being physically and mentally drained before the day is even started is not the vibe. This energy stayed low throughout the whole week. I felt stuck in bed some days, barely feeling like getting up and moving around. My brain began to hurt. My eyes were hurting every time I looked at a screen. In working with computers, it is literally your day-to-day, your everything. Sometimes you can't even do work without looking at a screen at this point. After work, I was even dreaming about work. I should have logged those hours on the timesheet, because why am I leaving work thinking about work? Gotta have a separation somewhere. Throughout my career, this has happened before, only a couple times, where I've worked long hours and started taking work with me to sleep. And I have to tell you, work is not a good partner to have in bed. This time I'm working on a project, and naturally I am a continue to work on it until it's done type of person, but it's taking longer than expected. So I've not been able to disconnect as much as I'd like. For all the listeners in your early career like myself, this is what I called growing pains, but this still requires boundaries. My work-life balance during the last couple of weeks of August went to trash. It seemed like work-life balance has lost the importance it once had when it was being heavily promoted by companies. And you guys all know what I was talking about. During the pandemic, work-life balance, a little bit after work-life balance, it was just being promoted at companies as we love you guys to have a work-life balance. We provide so much time off and all this other stuff to get you to essentially work for them. But now it just doesn't have the same effect still. But I realize it's something that I have to uphold within myself, set the boundaries for myself. And it's if this is my schedule, I'm going to work this time. I'm going to get as much as I can done, but I cannot continue to stress myself out working to the rest of the 24 hours in the day or into the next day just to get something done. I have no time for life at this point. But I'm not saying that's exactly what's going on, but that's what it feels like. It's kind of forgotten in a sense to me. I don't see it promoted as much. I don't see it talked about as much. It's kind of gone with the wind. So speaking on that, this past week was hard due to the lack of sleep. Being physically and mentally tired before the day really comes to an end is tough. when you have a lot left on your plate. I'm learning that it really takes one step at a time to make it. The real tea is so much of life was neglected during that week. I barely got stuff done around the house, in all honesty. And for an update for you guys, which I want to do another episode on how I utilize my career to get my home and how I was able to basically become financially stable and all that stuff with my career. Because just because you get into a job doesn't mean you automatically know how to manage your money and you know what to do with it. It's things you have to learn in order to progress in those ways. And I do want to do a couple episodes about that. But back to the point. So, yeah, a lot of life was being neglected. And as you're hearing this, I'm on PTO. And I'm so happy that I've had some freedom and inspiration to return to the podcast. As you've seen, if you guys have kept up with the episodes, there are usually a spur of episodes coming out. They're like episodes back to back. And then they'll be like months before another one comes out. It is because I still do not have my work-life balance situated. Like, one moment I'll have it and I'll be all right. Like, or I'll just do bulk episodes and I can make sure I get them out, schedule them out. And then the next is just feels like the world is crumbling down upon me. And it may be dramatic, but it's just how I feel at the moment. And it's hard to get content out. So this is where I'm like changing the pace and feeling myself again. Where it's just like, at this point, why do I have to hide the struggles that I'm going through if I want to have a open and honest platform of what it's like to really have a career? And right now I'm 22 and I turned 23 on September 7th. To start your career so young and to be at the level that I am, I may be able to work on my career and move to the next level. But life is something that I'm still learning to maneuver. I'm still learning myself. I'm still learning who I am and what I like to do. And I do have a feeling that at the rate I learn about myself, my career goals could change. So it's not healthy for me to be working so many long hours and just being so head down focused in what I'm doing now, because the truth is it could make me resent where I am. And I don't necessarily want that, because I enjoy the work. I don't enjoy the stress that it puts on me when it comes into taking away parts of my daily life. And I feel like people understand that. I may not have like kids and stuff right now. So as I go through this journey, it's just like, what is really important to me at the end of the day? That's something that I really want to talk about going forward. It's just the longevity of your career. Since I'm starting so early, how long would I want this to last? And I don't mean being stagnant in this area. I mean growing. Because I kind of have an advantage of starting so young and being able to at least put my money in places to eventually become work optional. So that's something that I'm thinking about, that'll just help me kind of maneuver throughout life a little bit easier. So back to what I was saying. Life has been lifing, and I'm being a little vague, but y'all understand. Y'all get me, hopefully. During my vacation, I just wanted a break from work. I'm not reachable by phone, email, or anything. I have to break this communication bridge somewhere and then rebuild it when my PTO time is over. But I'm really expressing the hard part of my career. I chose a path of networking, which is a lot more demanding than you kind of get an introduction to. So at the beginning, in my official like full-time days, I was doing help desk. Then I moved to the knock, which is basically like a networking focused help desk. And you don't necessarily take that work home with you. it was like a call center vibe. So it was like, when I'm on the clock, I'm on the clock. When I'm off the clock, I'm off the clock. That's how that environment was. Now it's a little different for me because I see the work as so project based. Like, yes, I have like set hours, but if I need to spend time getting something done, I spend time getting something done. But yeah, networking is more so around the clock based. And it's something also, if you guys are starting in your career, if you're looking for things to do, if you're still trying to find what you're interested in, I really suggest reaching out to people in the fields that you're interested in and get a actual understanding of what they are doing. Like, mentally, subconsciously, I knew networking was a 24/7 thing when I joined the NOC specifically. Like, that's when I knew it was a 24/7 thing. And then when I became an engineer, I thought it would go from, I went from 12 hours to 8 hours, but really started working more. So that's how it kind of shifted for me. And it's not something I've thought about. So that's something I want to talk about now. Like, how much work or how many hours will you have to put into developing this or stepping deeper into your career? That's something that you got to think about a little bit more. It's like, how often would they need you? that is a question. How often would they need you? Might be something to think about. And I wanted to say, like, everything is good in moderation. For me, August, there was just barely any moderation. It was just also, it was a lot of work. It was a lot of work. What I'm doing about my work-life balance is simply talking about it for now. I'm giving an update to you guys, and I'm not trying to scare you to enter in the tech field, like to prevent you from entering the tech field. I'm providing some true insight into what happens when you end up overworking yourself. It looks different for everyone, and you've got to know your limit. There may be times when it comes to a point where you have to put in a couple more hours of work, and that just shouldn't be a regular thing. At least I feel like it shouldn't just be a regular thing, because I am not living to work. I am hoping, I don't even want to say hoping, I'm utilizing my career to fund the lifestyle that I desire. So to me, it's not the end goal. It's not to work the 40 years and retire and then hopefully live off a 401k plan that's just, somewhat sustainable in whatever inflation period that we end up going through, how high it gets. I really want to be able to enjoy life now as I'm understanding that. So my priorities are shifting as I'm getting to know myself. But it's just something that I'm going through as I go through these growing pains. As a fellow Virgo, I'm claiming September as my month and getting back on the wagon of self-care, which in this case is really self-discipline for me. This means writing out my thoughts. That's something I noticed that really helps me to not be stressed and overwhelmed with the tsunami of thoughts just flowing through my brain. I noticed, I might have talked about this before, I don't know, but when I don't take notes, the day or the week just becomes extremely harder for me to manage. I am someone who has to write stuff down to honestly understand it. In order for me to truly understand the work that I'm doing, I need to write it down. I need to put it in my own words. I need to be able to put pen to paper, pen to tablet, whatever, and write it down. Because if you're just talking to me, it's not being absorbed if I haven't basically listened, digested, and put it on paper. because I listen to so many things a day, I can't remember it all. But if I wrote it down, it must be important. It must be. So another thing as well is planning out my day. If it's not on the calendar, it won't get done. That has been one of the mottos of my life, basically since high school. If it's not on the calendar, it's not getting done, because does it exist on the calendar? If not, it is not up in my mind. Another thing as well is talking to my circle of influence. And I'm only using circle of influence today because my uncle was talking about the people around you who are truly there to help you. They influence you, they mentor you. They're the people you are more receptive to when receiving information and acting on it. And our circle of influences stems from our environment. I talked about this, where you have to get around the right people. You have to get around an environment that is promoting growth in a healthy manner. And I realized that whenever I go through a slump, I have a tendency to isolate myself. And the more I isolate myself, the worse it gets. As the moment I talk with someone, it starts going on the up and up. Life starts moving better. I feel a sense of relief. So this is not just for me. If anybody needs this message, reach out to the people who you know are willing to help you. Reach out to your mentors. Reach out to your sponsors. Reach out to even people that you may provide help to yourself. Talk with your circle of influence. And another thing as well, I have felt kind of down and haven't talked to somebody. And I found Michelle Carey's Challenge Accepted videos. I was going to talk about this in another podcast, and I'm bringing it into this one because I was just watching her videos as well. That sense of motivation to get out of my own head happened after I watched one of her videos. And I was so inspired, because I'm usually a person where it's like you try a lot of things once, like you go after the things you want to do, you overcome your fears, and like Challenge Accepted embodies that. And I love to see it. Just watching her videos, even if you can't contact your circle of influence, I know what content motivates me. So sometimes you may just need to tap into that for a moment until you can talk with your circle. Or maybe your circle of influence is certain content creators and things like that. So it's alright. Just tap into what will get you out of that slump. All of it is, your environment is very important, and that's when you're in that slump, that's when you need them the most. Life will continue to move, and so will your career, as long as you want it to. Your career is like a definite driving factor of what's inside of you, what you are doing. I just want to throw that in there. For me, I'm learning how to navigate both without collapsing. This whole year has been the toughest for me mentally. And I don't even feel like the pandemic times, where it's like 2020 was the toughest. This has been the toughest year for me mentally, 2023. And I've been just saying it's all the growing pains. I am in the life that I've manifested, and it's really changed. Me and my uncle talked about it. He mentioned like the transitioning period is the hardest. I am in that transitioning period. It is a lot of changes happening so rapidly is what it feels like. Because it's just one thing after another, and there's no pause. And I've been looking for a pause because I feel like I've dropped everything and I don't have time to pick it up. It feels like I keep dropping things and I can't go back and pick them up. It's growing pains. I'm learning to maneuver through it. I'm learning to enjoy the moments. I'm learning how to reduce being overwhelmed and taking it one step at a time, one piece at a time. I have realized the times that I've felt the most stressed, and I can date this back to my planners and my journals, because I write to get it out. So the moments when I stop planning out my weeks because I quote unquote feel overwhelmed, or I just forget, or I just don't have time, those are the worst times for me. I am more organized, I am more put together, I am more productive when I write it down, I plan it out, and I can cross it off the list. That is how I operate. You may operate differently. You may need to take a look at how you operate and understand what helps you out, like what actually puts you in the right space productively. But that is something I want to dive in a little deeper as well. We'll get through this together. It's just the growing pains of life, career, just everything. If you like this episode, go ahead and rate and subscribe to the podcast. Thank you guys for tuning in to the podcast to gain knowledge, wisdom, and understanding to be insightful in technology. I'm your host, Shikirah Johnson. Connect with me on LinkedIn. Thank you for listening. I'll see you later. Well, talk with you later. Bye-bye.